lovely Saturday, the 11th of July, 2020. Good morning and thank you for joining us today's episode of News Report. My name is SALIFYANJI BWEUPE.
And I'm KAMOTA MAYONDI.
Before we get into the leading stories, I want to ask, how is the weekend so far? How was the week?
Well, the week has been, we had a public holiday, and so that kind of really shortens the week. Your week is kind of broken up. So Wednesday felt like a Monday.
Sure, yeah.
You know, you're catching up with everything that you need to do. But I think it's been a really good week. And not to be that boring person who starts to talk about weather, but I'm liking the fact that it's slightly warmer. I do not do very well with the cold, so I'm enjoying the fact that the weather is nice and warm.
Exactly.
How about you, Sally?
Yeah, the week has been okay, and like you said, Wednesday was the Monday. But I would like to reflect on the two public holidays that we had, where it was Heroes and Unity Day as well. And I think it should be so much more than just being able to celebrate the holidays, but also reflecting on, you know, the significance of the days that, you know, were put up as public holidays as well. So I guess we can get right into the leading stories. But before we get to that, if you're watching us right now, you're catching us on your Topstar decoder, that is channel 112. As well as our Facebook live feed, that is Live TV, and our YouTube channel, that is Live TV channel as well. We want to hear from you, so please be sure to send us your messages on 0976 599 547. The number is right at the bottom of your screen there, in case you did not catch that number. Right. So into the leading story is a second fast-track court launched on the Copper Belt. Muitua refuses to apologize to VIP and walks out of Parliament. Tighter rules on face coverings likely, says Boris Johnson, and that's a report coming from the BBC News. So getting the details of the story, Choma Central Member of Parliament Cornelius Muitua Friday morning walked out of the National Assembly after refusing to apologize to Vice President Inongewina for allegedly attacking her character. In a session monitored by Live TV, Lands Minister Jean Kapata had raised a point of order against Muitua, accusing him of calling Wina shallow and shameful for linking the gassing incidents to an attempt to influence regime change. Muitua, however, denies attacking Wina's character, but admits using the words shallow and shameful in reference to her statement trying to link the gassing incidents to attempts to cause civil unrest. Meanwhile, Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Patrick Matubini, ruled that Muitua was out of order to refer to the Vice President of Zambia as shallow and shameful. Matubini directed the lawmaker to apologize for conduct that was outside parliamentary procedure and guidelines. However, Muitua refused to apologize for what he termed as exercising his freedom of expression and walked out of Parliament alongside other UPND members. Muitua said the person who should apologize was the Vice President for misleading the nation, adding that he wouldn't apologize for enjoying his freedom of speech. More than 40 people were killed by mobs arising from gassing incidents in Zambia starting August last year up to early 2020. We have this clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for asking me to come and apologize for a statement I made in reference to the statement made by Her Honor the Vice President in what I believe was in furtherance of my enjoyment of my freedom of speech as entrenched in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. Mr. Speaker, asking me to apologize is like asking me to stop breathing. I made it abundantly clear to your committee
Honorable member, take a seat. Take a seat. Take a seat. You have been advised of the proceedings, and I believe you were approached by the clerk of the National Assembly, and you are not the first one requested to apologize in the circumstances that I have outlined. So as you give you the liberty to follow a very well-established procedure for tendering an apology. Honorable Member for Choma Central.
Mr. Speaker, the person who should apologize is the Vice President for misleading the nation that we, the opposition,
Honorable Member for
casting.
Choma, take a seat. Is it your position that you've refused to apologize?
I can't apologize for enjoying my freedom of speech.
It's a
not
very
me,
simple
Mr.
question.
Speaker. This is the reason why we continue in this house.
Take a seat.
No way.
Take a seat.
No way. punish
Take
me
a
for what
seat.
I have done wrong, not for no wrongdoing.
Take a
No.
seat. Take your seat. It's a very simple question that I've posed to you.
There's nothing like this.
Either you apologize or you don't, and then we proceed. We can't spend the rest of our time on this. Either you accept to apologize or you refuse. It's as simple. You don't have to offer an explanation.
Mr. Speaker, I communicated to management yesterday that I can't apologize for no wrongdoing.
So you have refused.
I am not apologizing.
Take a seat. Take a seat. So for the record, Honorable Mwetwa, Member of Parliament for Choma Central, has refused to apologize to our honor, the Vice President. We'll proceed. Our honor, the Vice President, will now indicate business of the House for next week.
As you can see, Kamota, there, that's quite a very interesting, incident that happened in Parliament yesterday, where the Central Member of Parliament had, walked out and had called the Vice President, shameful, and or her statement shameful and shallow for having referred to the gassing incident as, something that had something to do with the changing of government. I really feel that it's so sensitive, first of all, for the Vice President herself to refer to that as, kind of like a political move of trying to change government. I feel even on that comment, it might have come out too strong, because we are still trying to figure out who was behind the gassing attacks. So for people to start throwing stones at each other at this point, where no one has told us anything, and accusing each other of doing, all those things, I don't really feel anyone would take that lightly. I don't know about the rest of the members of Parliament, but yes, maybe the Central Member of Parliament should apologize for his words, but I don't think he will apologize for what he said, because in actual sense that is actually true. We can't refer to that incident and call it a political move. I don't know what your contribution is to the story.
I would to really get a full feel on it, I would like to see the exact clip where he said those words to decipher whether he referred to her character or he referred to what she did as being rather shameful and shallow. So with his stance to refuse to apologize, I think it also comes into the context. I think he's feeling, I need to defend my position, to say, I'm not saying that she is this, but what she said is misleading. And Parliament is a place where these conversations happen, and sometimes they're difficult, sometimes they're uncomfortable conversations. And we'll see how it goes. But it must be a very difficult position to be in as well, seeing the fact that you're in the opposition, and no one would take things lying down. If you feel that you're under attack, or your party and what you represent is under attack, obviously you're going to voice out your particular opinion. And I suppose this is why Mr. Mwetwa is leaning so heavily on, I'm expressing myself, I'm using my freedom of speech. How then now am I being made to apologize? So there's certain dynamics as well, and sometimes there's also ego. Like, I'm not gonna retract what I said, so it's one of those things.
Okay, so I was about to refer to the whole Parliament sitting as it's something that happens behind closed doors. This probably is not the first time that someone has said something against the other person that could be hurtful, to their ego as well, or to their position that they actually hold. But the reference to it, or picking out this particular story in it, I think is just one-sided as well, because there's so many things that happen, and I don't think, it should be...
Do you feel it's because it's the Vice President?
Maybe, could be, but still.
Anyway, he was called out. He was called out for being out of order with regard to how one is supposed to express themselves in Parliament. And we see videos from different parliaments around the world. We've seen how Julius Malema gets. We've seen how there's even been funny videos in other countries where it now becomes a fist fight, It does get heated. It does get heated, and the conversations get had. But sometimes I think it's really important that points are driven home, whether an apology comes later or there's a bit of uncomfortableness. The underlying issue in all of this, I feel, is we had a very big situation with regard to gassing, and it's now behind us in part, but we still haven't got to the bottom of it. So we can't go around accusing people without having full proof and evidence. And also, when it comes to dialogue, had roles been reversed, would an apology been demanded if the opposite happened? Those type of things. Sometimes you have to consider that. And I can't help, maybe this is a controversial thought, I can't help but feel, was that out of order because he was speaking to our Vice President, Mr. Nonge Winner, because she's a woman? Was it more like, you will not talk to her like that? Was it that type of issue, or was it also just the fact like, you're out of line, could you get yourself back in line, could you apologize?
That's what I'm saying. These things, there's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors. That is like a whole different relationship that people have in there. Outside of things, if you were to say those words, I bet you would be facing the arm of the law. You know what I mean? But maybe it could be because it's the vice president, not because she's female. But I just feel just because she's vice
why
president,
would
that's
I
why
face the arm of the law, first of all?
Are you allowed to really speak freely? Like, it's
no, but was the law broken?
No. I'm just saying, when it comes to freedom of expression, look, KAMOTA, what has happened like in the past few days or weeks, just weeks ago, people have been freely expressing themselves. And a lot of them have been questioned as to why. And we saw one of them being arrested, for having spoken freely about what he felt was unfair. It might not be related, but I'm just saying, if there are people that are in higher office that are involved that you're talking about, obviously you will be brought in for questioning. But when I say this is behind closed doors situation where they know each other, they will obviously hash it out. They'll figure out a way to carry on. But I just feel like the way that it was handled, where the member of parliament, Mr. Mwita, walked out of parliament without having to resolve the issue, I think just leaves, a gap. Like, how will the relationship carry on? It creates a bit of confusion here and there. Are they going to resolve this matter, or is just going to be let go just like that?
I feel like it's parliament. At the end of the day, I don't think parliamentarians are in parliament to be best friends. They are there to look at, these are the issues that we're facing as a country. We're here to argue it out. We're here to defend.
When you have followers, don't you think?
We're here to propose this.
Yeah.
So people walk out of parliament all the time.
Sure.
And I think walking out of parliament is a stance. It's like, you won't let me, I will not apologize. I'd rather leave than
But the
stay
condition
here.
was you either apologize, we move on, or you don't apologize, we still move on.
Yes.
So he was given a choice.
Yes.
But he decided to still
leave.
walk away.
Yes. So I think the leaving is very intentional. I feel like when people leave the actual chambers, they've taken a stance. They're making a point known. People leave all the time. All the time.
Have you ever walked out of a situation when you feel like you were misunderstood?
Well,
I would refer to it as the same way. Probably he thought he was misunderstood, and there was no point for him to stay. And the ego obviously came into play as well.
And sometimes I think the safest thing, depending, is sometimes to leave a room.
Before you say
the worst
else.
things,
Exactly.
just say like, okay, guys, let's go. And his colleagues followed him, I'm sure, in solidarity, meaning they probably do side with him, and we support you. We feel that now we'll take our leave. Yeah.
So on that particular note, we'll go on our first break, and when we come back, we have a very interesting interview with a very, very interesting guest. We will not reveal who it is right now, but we definitely hope you will have your pens and papers ready and just get a thing or two, from what this person has to really say to us. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more news.
Welcome back. You're watching News Report. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI, and we get into the interview segment of our Saturday episode of News Report. And I have a very interesting guest, my boss. So I'll definitely be on my best behavior, and I won't be nice in this interview. I've got all the difficult questions. Yes. Good morning, Nancy. How are you?
Good morning, KAMOTA. I'm good. How are you?
Yes, it's really good to have you on this side of the
Thank
camera.
you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm very excited to speak with you. So this is Nancy, and she is the Dream Chasers founder, as well as the Life TV station manager. So getting into it, we're talking about mentorship and management, basically. So when it comes to your organization, Dream Chasers, what is Dream Chasers about?
Okay, so this is an initiative that was started in 2016 with the aim of providing mentorship and skills training to the less privileged young people in society. So the aim is basically to just provide mentorship and skills training to those that really need it in our communities.
So what made you realize that there's a gap with regard to mentorship and skills training?
Okay, so I think it all started with my personal experience. So growing up, I always felt like I was this young girl who had so many dreams and goals that I wanted to reach, but I had very little support systems around me that would help me make my dreams come true. So I had this dream of starting my own little community of people that were like me or people that thought like me, so that we can all help each other and grow our dreams. So that was the basis of Dream Chaser being founded.
So with Dream Chasers, you're mentoring, you're organizing skill training. So how do you go about mentoring and coaching the group of people who you've created this community with?
But so we have a procedure, standard procedure, so people apply
Okay.
to be members, and then once we assess their applications and then accept them into our organization, we then schedule for meetings, one-on-one meetings, so that we can get to know them personally, know what interests they have or what goals and dreams they want to reach. And then when we do that, we then put them in separate groups based on their interests, so that they can find like-minded people to interact with. And then based on that, we now look for qualified mentors in that specific area and, you know, align them together and see how they can work together.
Okay. So with Dream Chasers, is there a particular age group that you target?
So initially our target was teenagers and young adults, but then we've realized that mentorship is something that almost every person needs and wants. So we have removed those restrictions, so it's open to anybody who wants to come through, who feels like, okay, I have something that I can share with the young people, or I also need some encouragement in my life. So we've removed the limit on who can join us and who can't.
So there's no lower limit, there's no upper limit.
there isn't.
So it's good to know that it's everybody has access to find a mentor and to be a part of the community of Dream Chasers. So with regard to looking at the younger spectrum of the people that you mentor, what are some of the challenges that you've found when it comes to mentoring or giving guidance to fairly young people?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that we found is, like I mentioned, our interest was working with less privileged people. So the biggest challenge that we found was trying to change their mindsets. So these are people who have been living in their current situation, they're comfortable with the way things are, and maybe they even dream small, so they're dreaming according to their current situation. So now the challenge was to change their mindset and tell them, you know what, there's something beyond your current situation. You can actually dream bigger or achieve more than you are envisioning. So changing the mindset was one of our biggest challenges.
Right. So I like that you say it's also part of dreaming is changing your mindset, right? You can't. There's a quote about if your dreams are not don't scare you, they're not big enough. So it's good to know that this is also something that you want to push people to have their dreams be extremely big. And so on that note, we take a break and we'll be back with more questions about Dream Chasers as we speak to Nancy Chanda. You are watching News Report. We go to a break and we'll be back. Welcome back. I'm KAMOTA Mayondi. You are watching News Report, and we're talking to Nancy Chanda, who is the founder of Dream Chasers, and she also happens to be the station manager here at Live TV. So our conversation is around mentorship and management. So before the break, we just talked about how important it is to have young people to build a community around themselves of like-minded people, and how important a mindset change is with regard to dreaming and achieving your dreams. So Nancy, which brings us to the whole thing of achieving dreams, right? What sets individuals who are goal-oriented, who are go-getters reaching their dreams, apart from those who struggle to meet their dreams or live out their dreams? What is the differentiating factor?
Okay, so personally, I feel it's the network that a person has, or the people that they surround themselves with. So you find that those high achievers, it's most likely that the people that they surround themselves with are also high achievers, or they're people who motivate them to achieve high. So that's one factor that sets those two groups apart. It's the people that you surround yourself with.
Right. So it's simply having people who have a can-do attitude
Yes.
in your circle, those who will push you and say, look, this is what we need to get done.
Exactly.
Why is mentorship important?
Well, I feel like mentorship guides you. So you have all these dreams, or you have this path that you want to take. If you have a mentor, or you are going through mentorship, it makes the journey easier. And then it just helps to guide your thoughts, because usually when you have all these big dreams, your thoughts are not that organized, because you feel like you want to do a lot of things at the same time. So going through mentorship or having a mentor helps to narrow down your goals, or to do this, like do this first and then move on to the other things. So mentorship simply provides guidance.
I like that you talk about that, the fact that mentorship is providing guidance. There's quite a misconception, I feel, when it comes to mentorship, the mentor and the mentee. Could you just help us understand these roles? Because sometimes people want a mentor, but they don't know how to be a good mentee, So what is just help define this particular relationship dynamic.
Okay. So mostly the mentee is the person who's in need of mentorship, right? So it could be any form, if you want spiritual mentorship or financial, or just to do with your chosen career path. So the mentor is the person that's going to guide you through that path, or through that area that you've chosen. But then you also need to be open to listening to your mentor, and also following the said.
So who creates the path? Is it my responsibility? Is it my mentor's responsibility?
So you already have a path, obviously. You can't just go and say, I want mentorship. What do you want mentorship in?
Which
so
is something people do.
Yes, like, I need a mentor, but to mentor you in what? You need to be specific, even as you choose mentors. It's not just going to be, because the same mentor can guide you in your spiritual affairs or career. So you need to be specific. What area of your life do you need mentorship in? And then you need to have a clear understanding personally of what you want to achieve, so that the mentor can have an idea of what this person needs, or what the person's needs are, and how they can then help
them.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you've just joined us, you are watching News Report, and we're speaking with Nancy Chanda, who is the Dream Chasers founder. If you'd like to get in touch with us, the number to get in touch with us is on the screen. That's 0976 599 547. So you've talked about mentorship, and I have to ask you, of course, do you have a mentor, and how has that particular relationship influenced your life so far?
So I do have a mentor. You have to practice what you preach. So I do have a mentor, and that particular relationship has really helped me quite a lot, especially in my career path. So I decided to pick somebody who has a similar journey as me, or who has the same aspirations, or who has walked my path, my chosen path. So it has really influenced me, because in life, I feel like if you're trying to do everything alone, it never really comes out right. So once you have somebody that you can run to and seek advice from, and just have conversations based on what's happening in your life, it's really helpful. And that has really guided the person that I have come to be, in terms of in relation to work, and also my other aspirations. So it has really put me in line. I think back then I was all over the place, but now I feel more structured. I feel like my life has a structure. It has a clear blueprint that I can follow. So it has really influenced my life greatly.
Right. And so I like that you say the mentorship has given you a blueprint that you follow. But there's instances where life happens. You know, life, sometimes you'll be like, this is the plan, but how do you make room for being structured in terms of this is the blueprint I want, but being open to the different ways that life can go? For example, a practical example right now is certain people had plans this year, but COVID-19 just makes it practically impossible to achieve certain dreams or to achieve certain goals at the moment. So how do you remain flexible in pursuing your dreams?
Okay, I think you need to, like you said, you need to leave room for unexpected events. So these things will happen. So you need to be sure of that. You need to understand that life will not always go the way that you want it to go, but then you also need to have a backup plan, okay, in case this happens. So even when you're planning your life or planning the things that you want to do, you also need to look at, if this doesn't happen, what can I do? So you always have to plan for the unexpected events. You might not know them in its entirety in terms of how it will happen or when, but you also need to have a plan, a fallback plan all the time, which really helps.
I like that. A fallback plan is extremely important.
Yes.
So plan. How far back do you plan with fallback plans? I'm a plan B and C person. How many backup plans do
I
you
think I'm also
create?
B and C, yeah, B and C, because again, if you have so many plans, you'll be stuck. You don't know which one to choose. So if you just have two options, it's easier to pick, you know. So I think I'm also a B and C. It's easier.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And so let's talk about inspiration, because I think you can't have a conversation about dreams without talking about inspiration, because there's always something that fuels or feeds dreams and aspirations. So where do you find your inspiration?
So I always tell people that I find my inspiration everywhere. It's everywhere. I think that's one thing that I was taught even from a tender age, you know, always find the beauty in something. So once I feel like I need some inspiration, I just have to look around me and it's there. And it has worked for me. You just have to, you know, just put yourself in that space. Just look around you and see where you can get. It could be from the next person. I could be sitting here and I'm with you and say, okay, let me get inspiration from this person, or what's around me. Is it like you look at the skies or you look at the birds, you know, like it's just the little things. A flower, yeah. So it's the little things for me. It's just inspiration is everywhere. So I look for it in the space that I'm in.
Right, and I like that you say it's possible to find inspiration just around you, because sometimes we look too hard, and it doesn't have to be something that's far away or someone who's outside of your current circle. You can find inspiration just around you. And so when it comes to dreams, there's timelines to dreams, and there's also qualities that help you to make sure that, look, in this amount of time, it's possible for me to achieve these set dreams. So what do you think are some of the qualities and values that high achievers or people who reach their dreams possess?
Okay, for that, I think I would go with hard work and perseverance, because I feel like those two go hand in hand. You have to be a hard worker, but you also need to persevere, because there are so many challenges, so many storms that are going to come through. So as you work hard, you also need to persevere so that you can reach your intended goals. So I feel like those two go hand in hand. You have to be a hard worker, and also you have to persevere through those situations.
So speaking of perseverance, when do you, sometimes chasing dreams can be very frustrating. When do we draw the line to say, okay, it's been 10 years, I've been persevering. Is this dream really going to come true for me, or should I shelf it and just live? So when do you think there's ever a time to let go of a dream?
There is a time that you have to let go of it. If you've tried everything that you can, so you have to make sure before you let go of it, you need to critically sit down and see, okay, have I tried everything that there is to be tried? Have I gone through all the prescribed procedures? Have I done everything that needs to be done? And if you feel like, okay, I've exhausted everything, I've tried, like I've let go, try something else. But then it has to be after you're really sure that you've done everything that you can. Because there's some people who let go of their dreams just because they didn't persevere enough, you know. So there is a thin line. Like you can let go of something, maybe you didn't try hard enough, or sometimes you're just holding on to something that isn't.
Okay.
the average
Isn't that
dreamer.
so? A question that usually comes up in conversations around dreams and that type of thing. Some people may feel that dreaming is a privilege or a luxury. You know, there's this funny quote that I came across that said, follow your dreams, and rich people, they're like, dreams are for rich people. They'll tell you, no, follow your dreams, you know. So where do we draw the line between, okay, this is my dream, but I need to eat, or this is my dream, but I need to do this type of work in the meantime? So where do we draw the line? Are dreams simply for rich people? Or do we have to trade off being a dreamer to being realistic to our current day present needs?
So dreams, they're easier for other people. So depending,
I like that.
they're easier for other people depending on your lifestyle or how
Your life is.
your life is. It will be easier. You can just simply dream. The next 2 days, you start working on your dream, and voila, it happens. But for some people, you have to work extra hard for your dream to come true. But then you also need to be realistic, you know? So like you said, you still need to eat, you still need to feed. So you can have this huge dream, but be realistic, because you can die in the process before you even achieve your dream. So you need to be realistic. So you need to put your dreams aside. Okay, so this is my dream, this is what I want to achieve. But before I get to achieve this, these are the important things that I need now, that I need to work on now, and then see how what you're doing now can then help you to reach your dreams. So you need to be realistic. It's very, because I've seen people who have dreams and the only thing they're doing is chasing the dream, and just neglecting everything else around them. So you need to be realistic and see how you can survive now while following the dream at the same time.
I like that. So finding the perfect balance between
Exactly.
being a dream chaser, but also having enough grounding in reality. Because sometimes you can totally, literally be living in the future and not
now.
Not now.
Yeah.
So what values are you committed to, Nancy? What values, when you think of values, what are your values?
I think it's a hard work, hard work and perseverance. Like I mentioned, I think those two are the ones, are the two values that really ground me. So in everything that I'm doing, I always see how I can marry the two. Because I feel like life doesn't come easy; you have to work for it. So I make sure that I keep those two values at the back of my head, so that they can guide me in every aspect of life that I'm venturing in.
And now, to get to know you a little bit more, we know the organization that you represent, and we know that you're a dream chaser. You value hard work and perseverance. So just a little bit of a background story to Nancy Chanda. So what was your first job?
Okay, so my first job, I was working at a private school in the media department.
Nice,
So I joined the media department at this private school.
Did you love it? Did you enjoy it?
It was a bit of both. I did enjoy it because obviously fresh from college, you're excited to work. And I love the fact that that particular job gave me enough creative freedom. So it was, do what you can do or show us what you're able to do. So I love working in such environments where I'm given the space to come up with ideas or to work in a way that fits me or the way that makes me feel comfortable. So I had that with my first job, which was really, really great.
So you enjoyed the freedom to create.
The freedom to create.
And so when it comes to where you are now, if you were to look back 5 years and like how things have turned out, did you envision you'd be here doing what you're doing 5 years ago?
No, I wouldn't. I
Positively or negatively so?
I think for now I've accepted it and I feel it's positive. I didn't intend to be in media. My plan was to be a pharmacist. I think I was a humble dreamer. So
dreamer.
like 5 years ago I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get a job and I'll be taking care of my family, and that was it. There was no like details of which job, where, or which country will I be driving. It was just I'm going to get a job and I'll be taking care of my family, and that's it.
Right.
So to just like, humble dreams, like, oh, I just want a job. But yeah, I didn't envision me now. This is like...
and now
unexpected. Yeah.
So I like that you use the term humble dream, and I feel as a people, there's this certain Zambian culture. We take a lot of pride in a certain amount of humility, and humility is good, but I think sometimes to our detriment. Okay. So how did you move from being that humble dreamer to now having big, audacious dreams and goals? How did you make that transition?
Okay, so when my humble dream didn't come true, I had to sit down and see, okay, what else am I going to do? And when I decided what I was going to do next, I told myself, this has to be different. I'm going to do this different. I'm not going to be a humble dreamer anymore. I'm just going to go all out. So it was different. Even the steps that I took were different. I had to change a lot about myself. So yes, I do, like you said, humility, it's you know, people take it the wrong way. You know, you even want to be humble in the things that do not really require you to be humble. Like, okay, just, you know. So I had to reach a point where I was like, okay, yes, you need to be humble, but I need this. I'm going to do this for myself. And, you know, I wrote them down and I started following them through 100%.
And so you're now working in media. You're a station manager here at Life. And what would you have, what is your dream end game for your media career? Like what would you like all of this to culminate into?
I think the end goal, the end dream would be me sitting in a position where I am creating content, content for different generations. I love it when you create something and people enjoy it. You know, they enjoy it and they love it. So my end goal would be to sit in a position where I am creating content that, you know, will help people create memories. I think it's nice when our parents are telling us about like an old movie that they watched or something like that that has survived years. It's still with them. So I would love to be part of that team that creates content that people will really love and enjoy. The kids, you know, the older generation and so on. So that is my end goal.
And when we look at the industry in which we operate, are there any things that you'd like to see done differently in our industry?
Yes, I think the attitude of people wanting to do things alone rather than together. You know, so there's so many people that are doing things individually, but I would love to see a point where everybody comes together and say, okay, you are thinking of doing this. I'm also like, for example, Dream Chaser. If you feel like doing something similar, you come to me and say, okay, how can we put these two ideas together? Let's make them
More
work.
collaboration.
More collaborations than people just wanting to do things alone so that they can get the recognition alone. I think that's one thing that I would really love to see being done differently.
And we're talking about mentorship and management today. You have an organization that deals with mentorship and you work in management. So what have been some of the most difficult lessons that you've learned being in a managerial position, and what leadership challenges have helped you grow?
Okay, so one of the challenges that I really faced that I didn't really expect was that, you know, when you're working with people, you're managing people, you have people with different personalities. So there's obviously going to be that personality clash that will happen. And it's something that I really didn't anticipate, but then it happened. So I think that was like one of the challenges now, trying to see how you can bring people with different personalities together and have them work together. So that was like a huge challenge for me.
Okay, well, okay, it's good to know. And so if you've just joined us, you're watching News Report. My name is KAMOTA Mayondi, and if you'd like to get in touch with us here in the studio, the number to reach us on is 0976 599 547. The number appears at the bottom of the screen. If you have a question for Nancy with regard to Dream Chasers, the organization that she runs, or her role here as Life TV station manager, be sure to drop a text message. And so you've talked about the challenges of leadership, working with different personality types, which can be challenging, of course. And at the end of the day, we're people, we're human, we have feelings. But when I feel the higher that you go in leadership roles, sometimes you have to make very tough decisions. Sometimes you have to make very unpopular decisions. How do you remove yourself from feelings and this is me, I'm doing my job, I need to make this particular difficult decision? So how do you separate that?
So I'm glad that when I started taking up this management positions, my mentor sat me down and actually told me, you know what, you need to separate your feelings, you know, from your decision making. So there are times when you'll be really upset and pissed off and avoid making a decision in that state. So what I do usually when I'm trying to make a decision is I take a step back. If I feel like, okay, I'm really angry right now at this person, I do not make a rash decision there and then. So I take a step back and see if there's something that I would have done differently personally, and then just, you know, reevaluate the situation and see what's the best thing to do. So you really need to separate which is hard, obviously, because when you're angry, you feel like you want to say all sorts of things and all that, but then you really need to be calm about it and just separate your emotions from
the
the situation.
So what would you say is your management style? What has worked for you over the years?
What has worked for me, like I said, I think it's just not making rash decisions. Not making rash decisions. I've realized that once I make a rash decision, a few days later or a few hours later, I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So over the years, I've learned that you need to just calm down and take a step back.
When it comes to being a leader in any given dynamic, whether it's in a home, whether it's in an office situation, in a religious setting, do you think that people in leadership positions should or can apologize in the event that, say, I made a mistake, I'm wrong? What's your take on that?
Well, you can in some cases. I think each situation is different, but I think it's important for a leader to acknowledge when they've made a mistake. So when you feel like, okay, I really did make a mistake, I shouldn't have said that, and maybe it has affected the other person negatively, you need to be humble and, go and apologize just to make everything
This is where humility now comes in.
This is where humility comes in. You really need to be that type of leader who quickly recognizes when they've made a mistake and fixes the situation.
Right. Speaking of mistakes, I'm sure all of us can relate at various points in your career. You've made a mistake that you're like, oh, this is really bad. Like, will I survive this? How do I bounce back? So how do you bounce back from mistakes or failures?
Well, after you're done crying, you come back and see what you could have done differently. I think I keep saying that because it has worked for me. Once you make a mistake, yes, you sulk for a few days or hours, but then you need to come back and see, okay, this is what happened. I messed up. I shouldn't have done this. What would I have done differently? There's always something that you would have done differently when you mess up. So it's important that you sit back, go back, revisit the situation and see how you'd have done. That's how you bounce back for me. Just revisit the situation and see.
And ideally, in the next instance, you act differently.
You act differently, yes, because you can't be making the same mistake over and over again. Yes. You need to learn from your mistake, and make another mistake in this other situation. Don't make the same mistake twice.
Then you're not growing.
You're not growing. So maybe in the next situation, make another mistake and learn from it, but do not make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
And so, as we wrap up, what word of advice would you have to people who are just starting out and are looking to chase their dreams? What would you say to them?
So I'd say, firstly, clearly define your dreams and what you really want to achieve. I think there are times when you just want to dream haphazardly. You just want to wake up and start dreaming, but you need to clearly define your dreams. And also, it's important to get mentorship. Mentorship is important across board. It could be in school, even as you're working. So find somebody that you can draw inspiration from, somebody that can mentor you and guide you. And just act,
Act, I like that.
Yeah, act upon your dreams. Don't just dream. Don't just let them be dreams. You need to start acting on them.
I like that. Act on your dreams. So on that note, we come to the conclusion of our lovely interview with Nancy Chanda, who is the organizer of the Dream Chasers Foundation, and she also is the station manager here at Life TV. My name is KAMOTA Mayondi. Stay tuned as we get back into the news report, and I'll have SALIFYANJI back with me after the break.
welcome back. You're watching News Report, and I am SALIFYANJI BWEUPE.
And I'm KAMOTA MAYONDI.
Before we went on a break, we had a very interesting interview with our very own station manager and founder of Dream Chasers, and we were talking about mentorship and just following your dream. And I picked two things from there. And one thing that I might agree with Nancy is the fact that people are scared or they are selfish with exchanging ideas. So collaboration is very important.
Absolutely.
You are not an island, and that is a fact that you should get. If you have that mentality where you feel you can do and stand by yourself, it's not true. Even when it comes to like raising children and whatnot, they say it takes a whole village to raise a child. And also the fact that there are some dreams that you will need to let go. And I have developed one principle. I think like an understanding, where I feel like there's nothing as failure. It could be because it's not your time, or maybe it was just not meant for you. And so I'm living by that principle, because there are things that you have, and they will not work out like you wanted them to work out, but still there's just another chance to make it work.
I really liked the concept of humble dreams. You need to make sure that when you're dreaming, your dreams are bold. They should be dreams that give you that energy to actually pursue them.
Those that are attainable, realistic dreams.
Well, realistic dreams can sometimes make you be realistic in the sense that
it's something you can achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. So humble, relax. You're going to go where you need to go. But look at things that you can be able to attain, within a specified period of time. And that's why I feel it's important to actually even have like a vision board. It doesn't have to be all fancy. It's just something that could help you get from one place to another. Anyway, we get back into the news details. So we just received a story. And in this particular story, suspected PF members were attacked by opposition UPND supporters on the Copperbelt province on Friday afternoon. So this is in relation to an incident where it is reported that PF cadres attempted to disturb a live program on Mafken radio station featuring UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. We have a clip and we'll come back to dissect the story a bit more.
Oh my God. Don't beat him, please. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Happening now in Mofu, guys. Somebody has a taser. Somebody has a we are one.
I want to bazar.
So that's a clip coming out of the Copperbelt. That is an amateur report, but the video is really depicting, the collision that's, happening between the UPND supporters and the PF. I don't know, what are your thoughts towards this particular story?
It's always sad to see people resort to violence. Like, there's absolutely no reason why we should attack each other. At the end of the day, whether you identify with a red party, a green party, a blue party, a yellow party, the essence of the politics or the parties should be the heart of Zambia, should be the people, and it's never worth it in a situation where
after all living in the same nation.
Right, we may have different approaches to what we want, but ultimately we want to see a better Zambia for each other. And it's never worth it to get into violence, that's a political violence, because at the end of the day, and this is the way that I really see it, higher up, there's a bit more decorum, there's a bit more more cordial relations. You have situations where the people lower down are out there killing each other, while the party leaders are able to maybe occasionally pick up a phone call and say, okay, Mr. So-and-so or Madam So-and-so, what is going on? So we need to have a situation where people are not sacrificing themselves for what may feel like a battle. That is not, it doesn't, like, let politics be a battle of policies, a battle of, maybe occasionally words, but sometimes we get a bit carried away. But let it not be a battle of fists, of machetes and that type of thing. It's extremely disheartening and we should not see it. So for me, it doesn't matter. I really don't mind. I really don't necessarily pick to say, oh, was it PF against UPND or UPND? Like, whoever, I'm not, like, as long as it's violence, it's a no. It's a no. It doesn't matter who instigated. It's just a no.
Yeah, just in the previous episode, we were talking about how the word, cadre has just become something else. Or anything associated to cadreism just sounds as if it's all negative. It's associated with violence and everything else that is bad. And you wonder, what are they fighting for? What are they fighting with each other against? I know this is probably a response, from the bullying that happened in Monze, but let some things slip. Let's be bigger people here. Let's not be petty about issues that we can easily resolve or ignore. Look, the only secret that is there right now is if you can't change anything at this particular moment, you have an opportunity. We are going towards 2021 general elections. If you feel there's a change that needs to be made then, or we need to maintain the same people, go ahead and do exactly that, as opposed to having to resort to violence, which is not sorting out anything. What is it that fist fights, will resolve?
Absolutely.
Walk away if it's something, that you can't, face up at that particular time, but never ever resort to violence, because you have other people now that will get hurt in the process. Think about where you're coming from. If you're locked up, what will happen to your family then? How will they or who will take care of them? It should be so much more than having to be paid, 50 or 100 kwacha, or being given a free chitenge or anything else that you can get out of it. Let us be real people. Let us do something, that will at least benefit us in a more positive way than a negative way.
Right,
so we can get into the next story.
And in more Copperbelt related conversation, the Ministry of Justice has launched the second fast-track court on the Copperbelt, this time in the Luansha Municipal Council, with the first in the province having been in Kitwe City Council. So the Ndola High Court judge in charge, Emilia Sunkutu, said the launch was aimed at decongesting higher courts. And so she stated that the court would be able to deal with misdemeanors, while the higher courts will be left to deal with felonies. And the judge further explained that the courts will exist to ensure there is respect to the rule of law among citizens, and linked to what we just had. And this is the type of place where such instances could go fast-track court, because we're looking at citizens behaving badly. And so Justice Sunkutu said that she's hopeful both council prosecutors and those from the National Prosecution Authority will be able to work in a professional manner. And meanwhile, Luansha District Commissioner Patrick Maipembe said that there will be no more delays in attending to small cases, and some people have faced challenges due to backlogged court cases in the higher courts. And the Luansha Deputy Mayor, Golden Mulenga, said law-abiding citizens should not worry about the establishment of a fast-track court. And Mulenga said that the fast-track court is not targeted at anyone, but will operate as a normal court attending to small cases. So this is a positive development with regard to fast-track court.
Yes.
And have you ever been to the fast-track court for anything?
Yes,
usually,
I have.
Traffic.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I've never been.
I have been to a fast-track court.
And is it as fast-tracked as?
Well, priority is given to, who gets there first.
First come, first
save basis. But also now there's an aspect of where or how far the case has been built to actually, take place, whether in that fast track court before it's taken to the magistrate or any other high court as well. And obviously, you will get some appeals that will need to be
taken to a higher
so
court.
I just feel like maybe as on top of having to have these fast track court also being put across, I think we also need to give like priority to cases, regardless of who that person is. It shouldn't be about the position, but since there are cases happening, whether it's small misdemeanors, or misdemeanors, or big cases, priority needs to be given. The date when it's supposed to happen, at least let it happen.
Let's follow the scheduling. Like
Exactly.
if it's 15 hours on the 25th, let it happen.
Yes.
Okay.
And also the proceedings beginning on time. Zambians have an issue when it comes to keeping
Zambian
of
time,
time.
right.
So yeah, the faster that these offices open up and begin to work, the quicker that all these issues are handled also, and then there'll be no need to defer any court case to another day. Exactly.
Right.
So we take a look at another story, and this is pertaining to the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, who says that it has revised the proposed nomination fees to political parties for the 2021 general election. So I'm meant to believe that the dates, the validity for registering of voters has not been changed. It will remain as is, but they're looking towards now the nomination fees for the presidential candidates for the general elections that will be held in 2021. So ECZ Chief Electoral Officer Patrick Nshindano says the Commission has revised the earlier proposed fees after political parties made an appeal to the Commission. Mr. Nshindano says the revised fees have since been communicated to various political parties as a consultation process of the electoral rules continue with all stakeholders. He says once the political parties respond to the revised nomination fees, the commission will then release the new fees to the media. It's a good thing that they've actually engaged the various political parties to also have a say in the nomination fees. Yeah, so that is a good move from ECZ. So Mr. Sinado says this in an interview in Chapata, where the ECZ is holding a consultative workshop on the preparations of the 2020 mobile voter registration exercise. The workshop was officially opened by ECZ Chairperson Esau Chulu, and Justice Chulu said the voter registration is one of the key ingredients of the conduct of credible elections. The ECZ is scheduled to conduct the voter registration exercise from October 19th to November 19th this year. Justice Chulu said the Electoral Process Act No. 35 of 2016 empowers the Commission to make regulations providing for the registration of voters and for the manner of conducting the elections. He said the new register of voters is greatly needed since the audit was last conducted in 2016. So here now the Commission will have to engage in looking at the current voters. And do they check on people that have maybe passed on?
They do. There's
so they have
process.
Sure. So it's quite a lot, and maybe that's why they wanted to reduce it down to just a month in which to get new voters registered, and then do a backlog of those registered voters that are still alive in this case, I would presume. I don't know if you have anything to say towards this particular story.
That pretty much wraps it up nicely.
Okay, so we'll take our final break and we'll come back with international stories. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching News Report. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI.
And I'm SALIFYANJI. Welcome back.
Yes, and we get right into international news. So Boris Johnson was in a Q&A session live from Downing Street, urging people to go back to work if they can instead of working from home. So he has noted that they may have to tighten the rules on face coverings in England, encouraging that their use is confined in spaces like shops. At the moment, they're only mandatory on public transport, but the Prime Minister says the scientific advice on masks has shifted. Face coverings are now mandatory in shops in Scotland, as well as on public transport, with the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, saying it's an important public health initiative. Clive Mary represents the BBC News at 10, reporting from the science editor David Shuckman and political correspondent Alex Forsyth. We take a look at this clip.
The message is obvious when the Prime Minister is pictured in a mask. It means you can expect new rules in England for where you have to cover your face, no longer just on public transport.
We need to be stricter in insisting that people wear face coverings in confined places. We're looking at ways of making sure that people really do really do have face coverings in shops, for instance, where there is a risk of transmission.
Hello. The pressure has been building for a change. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak was widely criticised for not covering his face earlier in the week at this photo opportunity. And Scotland is already going further than the rest of the UK by requiring masks to be worn in shops right now.
I think it reminds people that we need to be taking precautions.
I think it's a good thing because it protects people.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Anything that stops this virus is a good idea.
The reason is that anyone infected can spread the virus with coughs, sneezes, or even by speaking loudly. The risk is greatest indoors, especially in crowded spaces with bad ventilation. That's where scientists say that face coverings can make a difference.
Those droplets are caught by the mask. And so most of the droplets then don't go on to infect other people around me. Now, some of the droplets might escape through the sides of the mask, but then they would fall down to the area around me.
The latest figures show that masks now have to be worn everywhere in public in as many as 71 different countries. They are becoming more widely accepted. It's estimated that in Italy, 80% of people now wear them. In the US, 70%, and in Spain, 65%. While in the UK, the figure is 25%, though that may now be a bit higher since that data was gathered. And a new voice has entered the debate, with tourist destinations struggling, like the almost empty Amalfi Coast in Italy. The travel industry now says that face coverings should be mandatory, whatever different governments may think about that.
The use of face masks should not be political. There should not be stigma around it. It is just the way we go forward to be able to move around freely while protecting others and also protecting ourselves.
It's a big step to order face coverings to be worn beyond public transport. But as we learn more about how easily the virus can spread, masks are becoming part of the new normal in more aspects of our lives. David Shuckman, BBC News.
And that was a report from the BBC looking at the way that the UK is approaching the requirement for people to mask up in different places apart from public transport as well as shops. So on that note, we come to the end of News Report. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI.
And I'm SALIFYANJI.
And we just take a look at the stories that we led with today. So the second fast-track court launched in the Copperbelt. Muitwa refuses to apologize to Vice President and walks out of Parliament. Tighter rules on face coverings likely, says Boris Johnson. And that was a report from the BBC. On this note, we say have a fantastic weekend. We'll catch you on Monday at 19 hours here on Live TV, Channel 112.